Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to yet another, a little bit later than usual, I think, but a summary of the stream. So this is the stream that Jeff Finnegan puts on once a month, where he does basically a Q and A and goes over different sort of news bits relating to Force of Will and questions people have, both that he's seen in the community and questions interacting on the stream and stuff like that. It's a pretty long stream at different random times, so that's why I do this summary. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. And yeah, it's just a straight summary I'm going to be doing. No like pictures or overlays or anything like that, so I can just get this out to you guys. Hopefully my audio is okay. I've been having trouble with it, but we'll see. He started off talking about, I don't know if he started off, these are just notes, but talking about True Blade, and he just basically said from a design standpoint, he doesn't like True Blade, but as circumstance came down to it, he could see them ignoring the color pie and bringing it back if the format needed it, but he doesn't really see that happening at all, at least that he's aware of. He was asked why Cthulhu and Play Dead didn't get hit by a ban in Wanderer format, and he believes that each of the colors has an answer to these combos, and he said which black just got an answer to it. We're not sure exactly what he's talking about, but yeah, he said black has an answer to it. This one was interesting. He said when Sherry was designed, talking about her power level and stuff, when she was designed, they believed that she did not have a way to finish games, but it turned out she did have a great way to finish games. So that one was interesting because I was talking to Oscar about this. Why wouldn't she have a way to finish games? Nothing about her blocks her from doing that. Like, she literally just has an extra deck that's 5 cards that you start the game with. Those 5 cards, they have no impact on your main deck, what you run for your main deck, what your win conditions might be, anything like that. You're not restricted to what's in your story deck on what can go into your main deck. Quite the contrary, actually. Having that story deck opens up the floodgates so you can do whatever the heck you want in your main deck. So it's super weird that in all of their playtesting with Sherry that they couldn't figure out a way to close a game out with her at all, with any card in the format. That, I don't know, that's just super weird to me. He said that he has some options on the Wanderer ban list he could see about getting rid of, but is waiting for replacement options for the cards. He says you don't want to just keep banning whatever the most card is over and over again, which I agree with. However, you should keep banning whatever the most broken card is, which unfortunately, as of right now, Force of Will has a lot of those. When asked, I'll skip that one actually. He was asked if there's any news on extra types of product, like dice bags and things like that. He said they're working on making those cool will coins, which are those sort of energized coins with chibi characters on them, I believe, to help promote the game, and that they might be released with different types of product perhaps going forward. So that would be super cool. He commented on Eva and how Eva should have been a 100, 100, or 200, 200 with her base stats in order to avoid getting banned. He just thinks that the base stats were far too high. On the Morgiana being unbanned, he said she was unbanned in order to give combo decks a sort of presence and representation inside of Wanderer, which he had saw that they just didn't get during the Wanderer GP. And so it's sort of to give those types of decks a chance going forward. He talked about the company going forward right now, at least, is going to start taking putting the brakes a bit on the amount of control and cancel heavy stuff they've been printing, to leave more room for you to be able to actually drop heavy guys and be able to swing and do different things like that inside of the game. And he said if that ever people get tired of that, or if that gets too strong, then they can always just introduce more cancels and removals. So I'm actually really excited to hear that, because not just the cancels, which you guys know I'm not a fan of. The sheer just volume and ease of access we have to cancels right now is pretty ridiculous, but the removals is one thing that people often don't talk about. The amount of just straight up destruction, damage, bouncing, and all that we have in the game basically deters people from wanting to play resonators, especially big resonators. I was talking to Oscar how I don't think there's ever really been a point in time in Force of Will where it's been beneficial to play a big resonator. Like, if you spend your entire 6 will in your turn to drop a big resonator, your reward should be you have a big resonator. You don't have any will to do anything else that turn. You don't have any will to counter your opponent next turn, but you've got a big resonator. And there's literally nothing in the game to ever have rewarded that. And the only reward you have for playing big resonators is if you have a way to cheat them in for an extremely low cost or different things like that. And so it'd be cool to finally get to possibly a format where you can get into resonators and stuff like that, because there's not a big market for just playing resonators for resonators' sake and stuff like that. So that'd be cool. If you guys missed it, I'll briefly go over. There was a big announcement for the next cluster. I'll go into more detail during the news, but basically the next cluster, there's not going to be any rulers inside of the booster boxes. They announced that they're going to be starting the cluster off with 5 starter decks, and these 5 starter decks are each going to have 2 rulers in them. So we're going to have 10 clusters to start off with, and then basically no other rulers for the entire cluster. We're just going to get a whole lot of support for these rulers with each set going forward. And with that, there was also a new type of thing called a rune card that they said is going to support the rulers and be a way to balance out rulers rather quickly in each set going forward. And so he said runes are a new card type. Some will be playable inside the main deck, but some will be locked to a rune deck, and some are locked to a specific color ruler, and some are locked to a specific ruler itself. So that's kind of interesting. Different than what I initially thought runes were when I first read it. So the fact that there's a rune deck, but also you can run runes in your main deck. So it sounds almost like Story Chance, how you could run stories inside of your story deck, but also you could throw them inside of your main deck as well. But that these will also be locked to certain stuff, because it originally sounded like basically like a hybrid of Regalia and the sealed abilities that we had seen in Rhea Cluster with the rulers. So they might still be like that, but also with some extra stuff, it sounds like. He talked about how the star decks can be split into 2 half mini decks that have thematic support among them to help teach new players to play the game, which is why the decks are going to have 68 cards in them. He finds that it's a realistic way to help people try the game, and it fixes the ruler distribution issue, like how some players didn't have IU and different things like that. So that's interesting. I'll go into more detail on my thoughts on that probably during the podcast this week, but I have mixed feelings on that. But that was his sort of response to that. When asked what he thought about reprints, not functional reprints, but just straight up, here's a reprint of a card, he finds that it's only appropriate inside of a Vengulf set, and he has expressed these feelings, but as of right now, there's no plan on any Vengulf sets. So that's super disappointing, because I'm a big fan of straight up reprints, because there are some cards that are just really good to have and a lot of fun to use. They're nothing broken or anything like that, or in fact, maybe having them would help go against broken cards inside of the game. And it also opens up the possibility of, like, say they reprinted Seal of Wind and Light. You could have the option of running the new Seal of Wind and Light or the old one, like depending on the art and different things you might like about it, in the same way that it works with Pokemon, which I really enjoy. I don't really enjoy the game, but I really enjoyed how they did that. So that's kind of disappointing, especially since they don't even have plans for Vengulf. So we basically will never see reprints outside of Vengulfs. And the new cluster he confirmed is called New Valhalla, and the first booster box is called New Dawn Rises. So that's pretty cool. I like that. And he was asked if we would ever see machines again, and he basically just said, maybe. So I hope so. I really liked machines, and I know Oscar really liked machines as well. They're really cool. I like the idea behind them and all that, so hopefully one day. He couldn't answer any questions regarding if we'll see dual stones in the next cluster again, or if we're going to be dropping them. And when asked about possible crossovers with Caster Chronicles, he said they want to keep things separate for the time being, but they're okay with using it for promo stuff, like how the new Caster Chronicles box, as you guys saw in the box opening, has Medusa, the original Medusa art and everything for one of the casters, and Xion for another one, so, which was super cool to see. So he's okay with stuff like that, but no straight crossovers, which is kind of unfortunate, because that's one of the things we were teased for. And I really love Caster Chronicles art and all that, so that'd be cool to see in Force of Will. But yeah. He was asked if Otherworld Dreams would be unbanned when Severing Winds rotates. He thinks that a one-cost answer to anything is too good, so he'll test stuff and see, but it sounds like probably not. Which is interesting, which we'll get to in a sec. Which is interesting because when asked about Lorite, he said Lorite is on the watch list to be banned, but he is a necessary evil right now. He said there are several things now, as well as several things coming out soon, that you will need him to counter those. That will be pretty easily killing you unless you have him. Which, and I think Oscar had mentioned, he had mentioned some stuff, including like OTK combos. Which, one brings me back to this, where he said he thinks a one-cost answer to anything is too good, which is what Laura is. He's a better version of a one-cost answer to anything, in my opinion, because he's a body as well. But also, I don't like that he's a necessary evil, because the whole idea behind that makes it so that you're now required to still, post-rotation, it sounds like, you're going to be required to run green in order to play Lorite. Otherwise, you're just going to get killed by stuff. And the implication is that it's rulers that are going to be doing the killing. Because if it was just abilities of resonators and combos with resonators, you could just Keysies call them and keep it in blue like it should be. But having it with Lorite implies that there's other abilities of J-rulers that we're going to have to worry about, which is super unfortunate. And I'm curious how much of that is new rulers coming out, because you shouldn't be printing new rulers on the assumption that they can only be countered by Lorite, which is, I don't know, I really don't like that. That's super unfortunate to hear, because I'm not a fan of Lorite to begin with. It sounds like he might not be too big of a fan either. But so moving on to the next thing, he was asked if the US will see anything with those really cool promo dual stones as far as availability, and he said they'll definitely be accessible to people, but he doesn't want them to be overpopulating the market. He wants them to actually be a rare item. So I agree with that. I think as long as they're in the US market at some point and not only foreign, I'm happy with that, them being rare. I just don't want them to be so rare that I have to go to a foreign market and all that crazy stuff. If he was asked if there's any news on the willpower reward program, and he knows he's currently picking the rewards, but he's not in the loop of knowing what's happening, and if anything's announced, he will let us know. And he was asked how that works with Caster Chronicles, because Caster Chronicles uses the same willpower reward system, identical, and he said he's not sure. The person is picking this stuff out right now, but he doesn't know how the two might relate. He brought up that there are, in fact, some of you probably experienced this, there are some local game stores lying to customers about things that are not true, and it's a tough issue to solve. He said, for example, like stores saying that distributors don't have product. That's something I've encountered as well with a local game store, and he's, that's just not true. All distributors have always had product. So if your local game store says that, they're just lying. And he said some local game stores are just there for profit. They're there just to move whatever product is selling at the time. So as soon as it stops selling, they're gonna just not carry it. So they'll lie or do different things like that, which kind of sucks. But as long as you guys are aware, it's not the distributors. It's that specific store. It's not a widespread problem or anything like that. He was asked about stealth cards, and he said stealth cards are really strong and hard to balance. So that sounds like they're going to have a hard time in reintroducing that, which is also a little bit unfortunate, but yeah. He was asked what his new favorite ruler is for the next cluster. He said one of the blue rulers and one of the black rulers are his favorite cards. He only likes the black one because of the character they use for it, and he said that white is a throwback ruler, which is why he likes that as well. He was asked about Ichi's articles. If you guys remember, Ichi was releasing these articles every month, at least, at minimum every month, talking about the state of the game and different things they're doing as far as programs, etc., to improve the game going forward, and we haven't seen anything in a long time. And he said that some of Ichi's articles are 90% done. There should be about 2 more. He's just been like so busy, he hasn't had a chance to finish the last bit of them, it sounds like. He was asked what happened to Vingo 4, and he said as far as he knew, there was never a Vingo 4, which is really interesting, because we were made to believe way back when that they were starting to work on Vingole 4. Not only that, but it's weird that they're not playing that with how ridiculously successful Vingole 3 was and how much like everybody loved it. There was no one I know that the only people who disliked Vingole 3 didn't like the it didn't have anything to do with the box. It was just the availability of it after it was completely sold out within in a lot of cases, like in my case, it was sold out within I think 4 hours of the day it came out, and almost every game store that carried it and different things like that. So that I think that's super weird they're not working on Vingole 4. Don't know why. I'd be curious to know why not, because like I said, it's super successful. It's a way for them to reprint cards, introduce quick fix balances to different things, bring in new players, because it's an easy thing just to be like, hey, buy this and all that. But I don't know. Maybe they're waiting to find out what happens to dual stones. This is interesting. He was asked about epic stories. He said he's familiar with the format via the gameplay he's seen on our channel, but it's not really known in Japan, and he can imagine it's really fun in person but not online. I would say it's a lot more fun in person. It's still fun online as long as you know everyone there for the most part, or you guys are all pretty relaxed and having fun. I think it's still fun online, but it's definitely a lot more fun in person. If he ever goes to like a GP or anything, and we're there, we'll try and play some epic stories. Come to Collinsville, Jeff. Come to Collinsville and we'll play some epic stories. He said he's going to try and get support for Wander. He said he understands that 75 players at the Wander GP, in relation to how many players we've been getting at all the GPs, is a good turnout. But he would still like to see some more support. So, like he always says, continue showing support, especially try and build some stuff at your locals, maybe different things like that, to try and show that Wander is something that we want to see more support for. I feels like I keep saying support a lot, and it's sounding weird to me now. He emphasized that with the Kaguya Colossal Ruler, there will be more avenues in order to get a hold of her. He can't say all the ways yet on how they're going to get to us, but he says not to worry, they're not going to be that rare to get, which is really good to hear, especially because it's not like, I feel like this is a ruler that people are going to want just like for fun, and it's going to be great to have, so it's good to hear that's going to be distributed out. He let us know that the Time Spinning Witch reprints are out, so go to your local game store and start putting those orders in, because yeah, those are out. So that's exciting. I'm excited to see that, and hopefully that the quality is improved. I'll try and see if I can get a hold of a box or some booster packs so I can let you guys know what I see of it. He was asked if there's going to be an off season. He said he can't say much, but there should not be an off season, which is really cool. We've never had a not off season. I don't know how to word that. So I'm curious what the prospect looks like of having a season just continue on. He said that the new Valhalla cluster is only going to have 3 draft rulers. He said yes, 3, not 5. He said there's something interesting about them, and he quote, they're not all the same, there's something about them, unquote, is what Oscar put here. So I'm really curious what that means, if they're like dual colors, or if they just are based on mechanics and don't have a base color or something like that. I don't know. I'm super curious to see what those are, though. He said that green is still strong, but as we rotate with Lapis cluster rotating out and the new cluster comes out, they're going to more properly balance the colors, especially green. And then he said when red cluster rotates, everything will be at a normal state again. So I'm really excited about that. I'm still a little bit cautious because that's almost identically what, I don't know if we were told that, but that was the general consensus. Yeah, no, it was somewhat what we were told going into red cluster, that red cluster was going to balance out the power level. It's going to be a lot more tame. And then when Lapis rotates, then we'll be in a nice, beautiful format. And that went away real quick. But with Jeff in charge, I'm a lot more confident with that now. So I'm looking forward to that. He said that Worlds is still taking place at the same location again this year. And he said that light, the color light, is going to be getting new themes in New Valhalla that will be beneficiary of the redistribution of the color pie, how they're actually like nailing down what each color does and is inside of the color pie. Light is going to be getting some new, I don't know if it'd be new mechanics or mechanics that exist but are rotating over to it, not quite sure, but that's still really cool because I feel like I think I mentioned on the podcast that I feel like out of all the colors, light is consistently the most neglected as far as power and all that for the most part. But yeah, he was next. He was asked about the Keurig ruling, which is something that was brought to our attention, which we didn't realize that in the U.S. and Europe, Keurig works the way that we'd expect it to work, which you judgment, spend all your counters to burn stuff on the field. He ticks back up to 15. Because he enters the field in response to entering, you burn all the counters. When the stacking goes backwards, he burns the counters and then goes up to 15. But apparently everywhere else, when you judgment, if you burn your counters, that initial number is what it goes by. So if you judgment with 10 counters and you flip and you burn, say, all 10, you only gain 5 counters. And because they're saying when you flip, you're naming the number of counters that for X that you'll be gaining, so that number stays stagnant the whole time. Is essentially the ruling behind it, which is I disagree with. But he said there's currently an investigation going on over this, but for now each country is going to work however they designate it currently. But they're investigating it to figure out, I assume, which one is the correct way to do it. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. He talked about how the new cluster is going to be going back to 110 card sets. So for this cluster, we had them at around, I think, 150, maybe a little bit less. And that was to promote sealed and draft gameplay and stuff. So they're going back to 110 cards, which is a little bit unfortunate because that definitely takes away some of the support for that sort of limited format. So I'm curious what the reasoning is behind that. But I think at 110 at least is a little bit tighter design. So overall should benefit the game outside of limited, but it is unfortunate that hurts limited a lot. He said he's thinking of ways to make milling a theme, whether it's milling yourself or your opponent, and he wants it to be fun and interactive, but he hasn't expressed these feelings to the company yet, but it's something he was just thinking about, which is something I'd love to see. I've always said I wanted to see milling become a theme in Force Will. I think that's a really cool idea, but not in the way that Rachel came about. I think that's not what I had in mind. Something a little bit more balanced than that, but I think milling could be fun. And he said he's not sure how the Architects distribution of demo decks is happening. He works mostly with Force Will and, like he said, 5% with Casters, and then pretty much nothing at all with Architects. So he's not sure what's going on with the demo decks. So hopefully those get passed around pretty easily because I really want to try that out. I'm really excited about Architects. And he said, and to close out, this will make you, just to really please you Prisha fans, he said that Prisha will never be unbanned unless the game just ended up getting like ridiculously crazy. So I'm glad to hear that because I hate Prisha, but a lot of people were really big fans of her and hoping that she would get unbanned at some point if the power levels went too high. But yeah, he said Prisha is never going to be unbanned. So yeah, that's pretty much a pretty decent summary of everything that happened on stream. I'll probably grab the main themes from this and go into more detail maybe over on the Force Will news on Wednesday if you guys are curious about some stuff, especially the new cluster. And we'll definitely be talking about that as well as some other stuff and the bands and stuff on the podcast. We'll be having a guest over on that. So that'll be a really interesting discussion. Be sure next time he does these streams once a month. We'll try and let you guys know ahead of time. We didn't know when it was this time around, so I'll try and figure out ahead of time so we can let you know, so we can get more viewers there, more cool questions being asked and all that. So make sure you guys, if you can join it, that you're able to join it. And yeah, so let us know what you guys think below, and we'll see you guys next time.